I wanted to give you an update on the latest changes and additions to Reportcaster. Just want to get you some information, some ideas on what you're going to be able to use from now on. First and most important one, we added a few more distribution methods. So in the past, we were mainly distributing via email or FTP. Now we got a bunch of new options to distribute content using WebFOCUS. So you can now use messaging applications like Slack, Google Chat, or Teams files using Amazon S3 buckets or Microsoft SharePoint. So I activated all those settings. Additionally, I made one more change to the system. So I changed WebFOCUS to open Reportcaster schedules in a new tab instead of showing a pop-up window. So that's going to get you more space on the screen, and it's also going to get you the capability of look at multiple things at the same time. To configure the distribution methods, that's going to be quite easy in here. So I configured our internal SharePoint system. So you're going to be able to use SharePoint. You're going to be able to use it in here to distribute information. I also configured Amazon S3 buckets in here. So in here, we configured multiple buckets. So you got some for your internal usage, which means those files are going to be within our internal AWS tenant, but I also activated our partners AWS tenant, so you're going to be able to share files through S3 with our partner. Same is true for Teams. It's fully configured for our internal Teams tenant, so you're going to be able to distribute files through those methods. There's one more change in here, which is the log purge and library expiration. I remember that you were having some requirements in the past. Then, for example, jobs that only run once a quarter or once a year, you were not able to get back to all the logs. We can now change it to keep always 10 executions of every job, which means you're going to be able to go back in history for those type of jobs as well, getting you more capabilities in here. What else was changing is actually in the past, whenever you were looking at your WebFOCUS jobs, and I know you're doing a lot of work previously, you had to go to the hub, you have to go to the homepage, you have to navigate down to the Reportcaster Explorer. Now you can use the URL for Reportcaster to directly reach out to the Reportcaster Explorer to consume your Reportcaster jobs from there. Having all those new distribution methods, I created a bunch of samples for you that you can use. And actually, I'm starting to use Reportcaster more for my administrative tasks now. So what I did for us, I know that you like to have a daily backup via change management export. And in the past, that was quite some manual jobs to do. Now I changed that task to a Reportcaster job. So in here, if we open up my Reportcaster change management export job, what I did in here, I created a new job in here, and that job is change management export. So I told WebFOCUS in here to pick up my change management package that I prepared and run that change management package and save the change management package with a name, a fixed name, and the actual date and time as a zip file. And to be able to long-term store those files securely, I used a distribution method to put them into the Amazon S3 bucket. Again, in here, I'm using the internal S3 bucket versus the external, of course, and I'm storing it in a specific bucket in my backup folder, and that's all I need in here. So having that done, we can now frequently, like once a day, run those packages and store them, or just do it manually. Having done so, we're now going to be able to go to our S3 bucket, and within that S3 bucket, we got a backup folder, and there we always store a frequent file. You just saw it appearing while we were looking at the element, so we got the latest backup stored in that folder on a secure place, not on the WebFOCUS reporting server itself. But there's even more features that we're going to be able to use from the administrative standpoint in the future. One of the most useful ones on the automation of Report Caster and other WebFocus components is using the Swagger UI. So that Swagger UI is a new capability in 9.3.8 that allows me to do administrative tasks like look at the diagnostics like trace information or do basic things like a health check in the system. So there's a complete section on health checks. In that health check section, there's a complete section on report caster, like that basic one here, that allows me to check the health of the WebFocus reporting server. So I can do automated calls in here telling me if reporting server is up and running in general, or going even to deeper levels like just checking if the email server is up and running. So I can do very specific jobs, or can even use that new API to run internal things like create a new schedule or just run a schedule. So a lot of capabilities to automate what we did in the system. If we look at all those new distribution methods, actually, so if we go back to our configuration in here, I mentioned we have all those different configuration options now, all these different distribution methods. All of those are, of course, protected by the internal WebFocus permission sets. I know you're a heavy user of Report Caster, so I granted you specifically access to all those distribution methods. But for other users in the organization, they only might see SharePoint or Teams or email. So it really depends on the user. But you're going to be allowed and ready to use all of them whenever you really want to.